The Tom London Show is brought to you by Suzuki Rivonia, the home of happy customers. How's it? You join me in my home again. It's been a fantastic, well, when I say fantastic, for my body it's been good. I've rested the last 4 days or so. I did what I said I was going to do. I wasn't going to go anywhere or do anything, and I managed to do all of that, not go anywhere. So I hope my video to you today reaches you feeling well rested, which was my objective this weekend. We'll be back in the studio on Thursday. In fact, I'm back to work tomorrow. Going to be recording some shows with Leon Lowe on the National Health Insurance Bill and talking about South Africa's national health insurance, which is quite a complicated topic. So I've been preparing for that today. And my day, I'll get to my day in a moment because it's been full of conversations with people who are battling in different areas. But before I say anything this afternoon, I'd like to send my condolences to Tonya, our good friend Tonya, and her sister Samantha, and Tonya's family and friends down in Sodwana. Tonya's mom passed away on Sunday morning, and just a devastating time for Tonya and everyone who loved Mrs. Curry, as I called her. I could never bring myself to call her Deirdre, but there were a lot of us, and I know many people who watched the show who had strong feelings of love towards Mrs. and for Mrs. Curry. So before I'd say anything today, I'd just like to acknowledge Mrs. Curry's life and the impact it had on me, her kindness and her love that she showed me. You know, whenever I spoke to her, she'd want to know how I'm doing. I'd ask how she was, and even if she wasn't fine, she'd say, "I'm fine, my Tom." But she would pick up on little things. She would say, "You're looking a bit tired," and I'd go, "Yeah, I never slept last night." Or she'd say, "How's your voice? Because you're sounding a bit rough." And I go, "Well, I've got a bit of a sore throat." She was very perceptive, and she picked up on everything, and she was kind to me for years and years and years. And last year, as you know, when I went down to Sodwana, I spent time with Tonya and her mom, and it was just such a wonderful, relaxing time for me, a healing time for me. But one of the big pleasures that I got out of that trip to Sodwana Bay and seeing my friend Tonya was to spend time around Mrs. Curry as well and be part of her day. Her daily routine for a couple of days, or the 5 days or so that I was there. And it was just those are memories that I'll always cherish, and the little peculiarities, like Mrs. Curry had one of the biggest bowls of porridge I ever saw anyone eat for breakfast every day. So little things like that I'll remember, and how well made up she would be when she got up and she faced the day. It looked like she was going off to a tea party somewhere, and you'd go, "Where are you going, Mrs. Curry?" And she'd be like, "No, this is how I dress." So just a fine and sophisticated and loving lady that we've lost, and one of our viewers on the show. And before that, she was a listener of mine when I was on talk radio. And so just someone who for many years followed me, and then I got the privilege to be part of her life for some years. And so I felt a profound loss on Sunday, and I have for the last few days, thinking about Mrs. Curry and the loss to all of us that loved her. So I just want to send my condolences. Obviously I speak to Tonya all the time, but I haven't gone on record and said anything, and so I think I should at the very least offer my condolences to Tonya and her sister and the family and friends, because Mrs. Curry had lots of friends down in Sodwana Bay, and say that we're thinking of you and we love you, and you've got a very big network of supporters that are watching right now that feel the same way and have felt the same way about your mom, and we truly loved her and we'll miss her. So I wanted to start off by saying that today. There are a lot of things on my mind, and before I pressed the go live button, I was wondering which ones to filter out and what to talk about. But the thing that I can't escape talking about today, and we'll get to comments in just a moment, so make sure you put your comments in the comment section. the thing that I can't escape talking about today is the amount of help that's needed out there. I get requests every day, and over the Easter weekend, I didn't look at any of them. Probably 5-6 days now, I haven't opened any messages. And Billy! And so today I thought, let me check in on a couple of these messages I've got in. And it's just so many people need our help. I may have to get him out the cage to stop him talking. But, you know, there was a call this morning from a lady who, down in KZN, who has a friend whose daughter was shot 3 times. Let me get him out the cage. Maybe he'll quieten down. Come on. Seeing as you want to be talkative, come and talk on the show. Come, there we go. Right, we've got a co-host. Excuse me and my dress. There's our co-host, Billy. There we go, Billy. Everyone's waiting for you to say something. So yeah, I got this, I spoke to a lady this morning whose friend's daughter was shot 3 times, is fighting for her life in hospital down in Durban. The family are battling with petrol money, just petrol money to get to the hospital and back. And then I thought, okay, sure, we're busy with the orphanage. How do we solve that problem? And then in fact, I didn't put the phone down because another call was coming in. And I just realized I've left the door open. So let me just close this door. That would have been a mistake. Hey, Billy, this is what happens when you're not thinking. So I put that call down to take another call. And the other call was from a viewer on the show whose son had a very bad motorbike accident on Friday, has been sitting in Tembisa Hospital since Friday, hasn't been operated on, not sure what's going on there. And same story, the hospital's far away from where the family live in Pretoria, and just problems trying to get backwards and forwards, and just really difficult situations that people find themselves in. And then I put that call down, and I thought, okay, sure, how do we deal with this? How do we help these people? And then I got another call from someone who highlighted a story of a young boy who has got cancer, and he's going in for treatment. And one of the treatments that it seems nowadays, the treatment everybody wants is immunotherapy. But the medical aids, it's not a prescribed minimum benefit on medical aids. So medical aids generally don't pay for these new advanced cancer therapies, or they ask for co-payments, certain percentage, and the family just doesn't have the money. And so there's a young child that, the medical aid will probably pay for chemo and radiation and traditional, if you could call it that, traditional cancer therapies, but the immunotherapy drugs, being so costly, are not prescribed minimum benefits. And this little boy is going in for his cancer treatments, and his odds could probably be improved dramatically if he went on to immunotherapy. Yesterday I was chatting to a good friend whose wife had been diagnosed with cancer, but luckily the treatments that she's having in their medical aid are being paid for by the medical aid. But I just, this morning, 3-4 calls, one after another, people in difficult situations. And the more that these calls come in and they stack up on top of each other, and at the bottom of it is the orphanage we're trying to help at the moment. And I go, well, this looks impossible. How do we remedy the situation? And I'm going to go back to my campaign. And this video today really is for anybody who's in a situation where they're wondering how to start a Back a Buddy campaign, how to get someone moved from one hospital to another, or how to raise money for petrol, or whatever it might be. I'm a beginner in fundraising, so I'm actually not very good at fundraising. I don't think I'm anywhere near the best when it comes to fundraising. And also, we've got a time in our economy now where the petrol price has gone up. People hold on to their money very tightly. A lot of people manage to get through the month, but they get to the end of the month and they don't have any extra money. So it's, you know, it's difficult for people to give at the moment. We're having difficult economic times where the prices of stuff like petrol is going up and people are feeling the pinch. And in amongst all of this, there are people amongst us who need. And I understand that because I've been in that position and I received. So I very often sit and I feel quite guilty that I'm not able to help everyone. And today I think I walked around my kitchen in circles going, if only I had R1 billion, you know. If only I had R1 billion in my bank account, my head would say, buy a jet and a Ferrari, but my heart would probably dictate what I did with that money, and that would be to give it to people who need it more than I do. But not all of us have R1 billion in the bank account, and so it makes things difficult for people who are trying to fundraise. How do you get this right? And I'd like to offer a few tips on the video today. That's the reason for this talk today. But let me say hello to some of the people who've joined us. Rosie Brown is on board. Anita Maynard is on board. Margaret Guider, one half of the Guider Counters, is on board. The other half is here, Guider. Anita Maynard says it's very, very sad. We're talking about the passing of Mrs. Curry. Una sends condolences to Tonya and all my loves in this difficult time. Condolences to our beautiful Tonya Curry. Barbara Ann Glass says, hi Tom and all. Sincere condolences to you, Tonya, her sister, and the family. Same, Margaret Guider says, all my condolences again to Tonya and the family. You're in our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers. We must dedicate a show to her, says Anita. Yeah, I would love to do that. And I just let a little bit of time pass and then talk to Tonya and see how we can do that properly. Alison says, love, hugs, and condolences to Tonya. So does my auntie Bev. Good day, Tom. Good to be with you, says Charmaine. I like the hairstyle. Oh, I bought a hairdryer the other day. And so before, I still think I look like a hobo today, but before the show I went, and this is what came out. Condolences, Tonya and the family. May your precious mom rest in peace. May every memory be a blessing, says Patricia. Corin Atwell says, good morning. Morning, Corin. Out of Houston, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Hey? Oh, don't shout at Billy, Tommy. He knows you're not yourself. No, Billy just likes attention. You see, he's sitting here. He's not sitting here because he loves me. He knows something's on the boil and there's a bit of a tension going on, so he wants to be in the middle of it. Margaret Guider says, yes, Tom, there are many people with very big problems. It's very sad. Sally Tarr says, so very sorry, Tonya. It's heartbreaking. May your mom rest in peace now. Karen Eva sends love and hugs. Nicole Patterson sending heaps of love to Tonya. I hope Tonya watches this and sees how many people are thinking of her. Oh, Tonya, I'm so sorry for the loss of your beloved mum. God bless you and keep you in his care. Eunice says, global economic crisis is making things so difficult. Yeah, this war in Iran and the fuel price or the oil price increase and the resultant fuel price increases are hurting people all around the world. Nikki Hart is on board and Cornel Fenter is on board and says, hi, Tom. And Debbie Mendes says, condolences, Tonya and family. Carol Hall is a bit late, but she's here. That's good. Who else we got here? Alistair's just joined us. Margaret says, I understand your feeling of guilt, Tom. I'm feeling very guilty at times myself. Wish I could do so much more. Tim Holmes says, what happened to your hair? Stop it. Leave my hair alone. I'm going for a haircut soon, and then you won't be able to say anything about my hair. I was actually trying to get this look going, but I failed. See? I failed. So I'm just going to leave it like that. It's all very delicate, Tim. You've brought up a very delicate... My hair's too long on top. That's the problem. So, look, there are people that watch these videos and turn to me for assistance. What is becoming obvious is that as a group, we can't raise $1 million easily. We can't raise 100,000 Rand easily. It seems it's getting more and more difficult by the month. And at the moment, we're trying to raise some money for the little orphanage in Calvin, and I think we've got 1,000 or 2,000 Rand in. But we're certainly not raising the kind of money that we were seeing a year or two ago. And it's evident to me that when I try and raise some money that I don't get the results I'd like, but I understand why, which makes it even more frightening if you're in a position where you've got a loved one in hospital Your family's run out of money for petrol, for example, or you've got a loved one that if they could just get the immunotherapy, they would live. And it's terrifying if you're in that position. So if you're in that position, I'm very, very sorry that you found yourself in that position. And what I can offer you is some advice. Because if you go back and look at what happened with me and how I was ultimately saved by the generosity of others, I think there's some important lessons in it. The first lesson and the first ingredient when it comes to baking this cake, let's say fundraising is a cake that we need to bake, or getting help is a cake we need to bake. It needs certain ingredients, in my opinion and from my experience. The first thing that you need when you put this campaign or an appeal together is you need someone who drives it. You need someone who feels it is their mission to try and get as many people to help as possible. And in every family and in every setting, there's usually one person who's quite prepared to take on that role. So normally I get asked for advice or help by the person who is wanting to help, which is a good starting point. But you need something for that person to build on. And what you need is a story. This is going to sound, perhaps this will sound quite callous, but in today's world where we pick up our phones and we're exposed to hundreds if not thousands of videos a day, that was close, we're exposed to written articles. I mean, we're exposed to more media going into our eyeballs than ever before. So, you know, in order to get a campaign to succeed, you need to stand out. And to stand out, you need a good story. And your story has to be out there. So, step one, if you are wanting to try and get the assistance of other people, step one is to start telling the story. Because if you ask people for help without them knowing the story, very few people are inclined to just help. People want to know what's the story, what's the problem, what's the solution. And the more detail you can give people, the better. Now, this is a very, very uncomfortable area for most people. And by the way, it's a very uncomfortable area for me. I understand it. I sat on this very couch in this position last year when I was coughing up blood. And I knew if I go back to that hospital I've just run away from, I'm not going to get better. But the alternative is a private hospital and I don't have the money for it. I called my brother in Abu Dhabi and I told him what was going on. And he said, you're going to have to ask for help. And I didn't want to. I was embarrassed to ask for help. It was almost as if me asking for help was a failing on my part, you know. And some people even told me it was a failing on my part. So there's that stigma that's attached to asking for help that I understand. I asked for help because I'll never forget my brother's words. He said, if you don't, what's going to happen to you? And I said, I'm probably going to die. And he said, well, there's your choice. So I felt I didn't have a choice. I just felt like I had to ask for help. Who did I feel I had to ask for help from? And that, I think, is an important factor in all of this. I felt that it was my friends on Facebook, people that I'd met over the years, people I'd worked with over the years. I felt that those were the people that would be inclined to help me. And I was right. When you take a look at the amount of money that was raised for my operation, more than half of it, I mean, I can't remember the exact percentages now, but I'm inclined to say about 70% of it, maybe 80% of the money I received was actually from people I knew. Some people I knew, I didn't expect that they were going to give me money, but they did. But by far, the majority of the money that I received came from family, from friends, from businesses that I've done work for in the past or present. That's where most of the money came from. The smaller portion of the money came from total strangers. People who'd never met me, who saw the story, and they said, we'd like to give you 100 Rand or 200 Rand, you know, the smaller amounts. And that came from total strangers, and there will be total strangers who are inclined to help you if they know what the story is. So my advice to anybody looking at helping anyone raise money or needing to raise money at the moment is A, make sure your story is out there. If you can, get past the pride we have in ourselves. That was even closer. Get past the pride we have in ourselves, and when you really need help, ask. But put it out there. Put it out on Facebook, on your Facebook pages. Put it out on TikTok. Put it out on Instagram. Put it out on YouTube. Put it out wherever you can. Put the story out so that people can start seeing this situation in the story that you've got. That's step one. Step two is to ask the people around you. To start with the people around you. And start working with your network and the network of people around you. So, you know, as an example, if you're a motorcyclist and you've been in an accident, then the motorcycling fraternity and community would be more inclined to assist you. Start there. If you belong to a motorcycle club, then you see if you can get that club to disseminate the story to its members, to run a fundraising night, for example. But I think it's very difficult, perhaps impossible, to raise the kind of money that people need to raise when there's an emergency and they haven't got the bucks by getting it all from total strangers. That would be fantastic if life worked like that. But my experience is that it's normally the people within your network that are more inclined to give. So I've had a lot of people asking me for help the last week or so. It's just impossible to help everyone. And the best I can do for most of the people is offer this kind of advice. A, don't be afraid of putting your story out there. Tell the story. Put pictures up, put videos up. Explain the situation on social media so that people like me and others who are on social media and have a few more followers than you can also tell the story. But it's got to start with you telling the story. And that's the first step. And once you've got over that step, you're on your way to raising funds. Next step is do it at the same time. Set up a BackaBuddy account. But that BackaBuddy account is not going to get donations unless you tell the story and get as many people to share the story as possible. And then work within your network. Work within your church groups. Work within your community network. Work within your WhatsApp groups. Whatever network you can think of, your immediate family, whatever it might be, you need to consult with as many people close to you as possible and say, hey, we've got a problem. Here's the story. This is what it's going to cost to find a solution. And I think a lot of people, and understandably so, get into a panic and don't know what to do. Simply put up a BackaBuddy page and then now what? And so my video today is to try and offer a simple 1, 2, 3 step plan to get you going to raising funds when you need them. 1, find your cheerleader, the person who's going to champion this cause inside your group. Maybe you're that person. 2, tell the story. Tell as much of the story as you can in as many places as you can. Set up a BackaBuddy account. And 3, start talking to the people closest to you in your network, because that's where you'll find the solutions. I think of Janelle, for example, where her medical attention that she needed was about 300,000 Rand, and I can tell you we were never going to get that money from simple donations. I can't remember how much we raised and how much Jennifer and Jimmy raised, but I don't think we raised more than 60 or 70,000 Rand across months, which would never have been enough to pay for the operation. But in making all that noise, in telling that story over and over again and adding to it, somebody in the world an anonymous donor said, I will give the 250,000 Rand that's needed. So it just took one person to fix that problem. I didn't even know who that person was, still don't know who that person is. But that person saw the story and saw the story enough to want to make a contribution. So this is a video for anybody who is needing to raise money to solve a particularly problematic time, especially when it comes to health and health-related problems. Step 1, who's the cheerleader? Step 2, tell the story everywhere, far and wide, and open the BackaBuddy account. Step 3, start talking to the networks and the people around you to see who can contribute what. Sometimes people can't contribute cash, but somebody will say, well, I'll give you a lift on a Monday. Okay, that's Monday taken care of. And so unfortunately, it has to be that step by step by step by step approach. And I realized that too when I was needing money and I was needing help. It didn't all happen at once. It happened, one person gave 80,000 Rand, and then someone said, I'll give 50,000, and then someone said, I'll give 5. And all of a sudden, one bit adds to one bit, adds to one bit, and eventually you may get there. So I really wanted to, this has really been on my mind the whole day. How can I make a difference to the 3 or 4 cases that have come in today? How can I make a difference? And I think the most meaningful difference I can make today is to give solid advice. And that's about as solid as advice as I can give. And consider it if you're in that position. Okay, what do we got coming in? There are a lot of comments coming in, and I want to read as many as I can. Lots of messages of condolences to Tonya. What else we got? You see, even Billy is disappointed with your hair, Tom. Leave my hair alone. I've got bigger problems. I've got teeth I need to fix. Exactly. Thank you, Margaret. I'm available to give people advice on how to set up a campaign. I think I should start charging for the services, Alistair. Well, what people don't realize is that in the background, Alistair assists a lot of people in getting BackaBuddy campaigns together. And I know that if you really need his help, he's always there to give some advice. In fact, what I think Alistair should do is set up a standard instructional on how to set up a BackaBuddy campaign so that when someone asks him, he can just fire off an email and give an instructional. Right, well, what do we got here? It must be hard to hear about all the very... Sure. And it gets complicated. I read the story today and I was tagged in it, and someone called me and said, please take a look at this little boy that's going for the cancer treatment. And then I went even deeper to try and understand the immunotherapy story in South Africa, because I don't know if you remember, some time back there was a young lady on the south coast who had advanced cancer, and the only hope, the only small light at the end of a tunnel would be Keytruda, an immunotherapy drug. I mean, we went as far as begging the pharmaceutical companies to give the drug for free, and we couldn't get it right. And then I went in to look at medical aids, and I learned today that there's not one medical aid in South Africa that covers immunotherapy treatment 100%. And then there are a lot of people that point fingers at the medical aids or the administration portion companies in the medical aids, saying they make huge profits, etc., etc. But when you look at the numbers, I can understand the headache, because a course of immunotherapy will cost you anywhere from 500,000 to R1 million for one person. Let's take Discovery Health medical scheme, for example. I think on a yearly basis, Discovery has about 45,000 people on cancer treatment, on prescribed minimum benefits. That's 45,000 people. If 1,000 people needed immunotherapy covered 100%, that's R1 billion. Just 1,000 people. So, I'm not saying all 45,000 people who are on cancer treatment need immunotherapy, but if half of them did, it would be enough to bankrupt a medical aid, for example. And so I keep, we like to point fingers and say those are the evil ones and those are the evil ones, and I'm subject to that as well. So I look and go, well, who's been unreasonable here? And I would have some serious questions for the drug companies on the price of some of these treatments. The rest of us are all in a position where we can't afford the Keytruders of the world, man. Unless you've got a lot of money or you're able to afford the co-payments. And it's just it's a crying shame that there's medication out there that could solve problems, but it's so expensive that you can't get it, even with a medical aid. So, these problems I talk about, where people need to raise money, these are not just problems that are poor people's problems. There are people like Oscar Chalupsky, for example, who has needed advanced immunotherapy, who had to fight for it and go to medical councils and challenge medical aids to get things paid for. And there are people on top medical aids that if they need immunotherapy, they're liable to pay half or whatever it might be. So I think we get into a stage in South Africa where we're seeing when people land up in a serious health crisis and only money can fix it, it doesn't matter, unless you're super wealthy, it doesn't matter who you are, you're not going to have enough. And that poses such interesting ethical questions, for me at least. Alistair says that thunder just arrived on the East Rand. The story can sound like a scam without we people knowing, like you see, and that's, I always say that to people, that if you say, we need money, all right, what do you need money for? Because that's what people always ask, what do you need money for? If you don't have a good answer, people will back off. Unfortunately, people will back off. So the story is very, very important. Cecilia van Buren says, and remember you helped me too for Nicholas, thank you so much. I was thinking of Nicholas yesterday, actually. Margaret Guy says, excellent thing, Tom. The more detail from the person concerned, the better. The situation needs to stand out as much and as clearly as possible. Unfortunately, these are media solutions, and not all of us are media practitioners. If you're a media practitioner or you've been in the public eye all your life, it's quite easy to put your story out there. But if you're a private person, if you're someone who doesn't share your life with the world easily, and that's most people, then it becomes very daunting. But unfortunately, it is a bridge you have to cross if you want, and I say this as someone who's received help before, I think if you want to hold out your hand and ask for help, I'm not sure you owe anybody anything, but it is understandable that the person who is standing by to help you, it is understandable that they want to know the story. It's human nature. Moira LaRue says the story can sound like a scam without famous people like you and others backing it. Yeah, and that's why I always encourage people to start the story at home. Start it on your page and let me report on it. There are all sorts of considerations I have to go through and legal considerations before I put a story out there. And if I put a story out and the person who's central to the story doesn't want me to put it out, I've automatically contravened doctor-patient privilege. I've done a whole lot of things wrong. So it's very difficult for me to take a story that isn't out there and turn it into a story because I'm not a journalist house. What I can do as a commentator on social platforms is I can say, hey, have you seen this story over here? Let's take a look at it. Let's speak to that person. Let's see what help they need. I'm able to do that. But the starting point has to be you. You have to start the story. And then people like myself can get involved. And people with bigger followings than me can get involved. Big media houses can get involved. But everyone wants to be able to see the story. So please don't forget that when you're putting campaigns or appeals together, The story needs to be well defined and clear, and it needs to be put out there. Karen says you also have to be your own best advocate and ask for help by starting with your own village. Yes, telling your story is important. The small contributions add up. I'm always inspired by people. There's a lady I met some years ago. She has a teenage boy now. His name's Aiden. He's got some physical and health difficulties. He's had all his life. And his mom has just spent her life perfecting fundraising. I mean, she makes things and sells things, and she has regular donors, and she does campaigns, and for her it's a lifelong thing. And I think of people like Kim Lubber, who has been over in Boston. Her daughter's been getting amazing medical care in Boston. But you know, Kim has every day of her life been an advocate for her daughter. Every day of her life, almost all of her energy has been spent on telling people the story and soliciting as much help as she can get. So it's a very big responsibility, and it's a big job, but it's not impossible. And I once again, I agree with you, Karen. You need to be, the first advocate needs to be you, and the first people you go to need to be the people closest to you, because you'll be surprised at how many people will help if you start reaching out to your network. Geez, the thunder is hectic there, much worse than Durban. Yeah, I mean, we do things properly. If we have a pothole in Joburg, we do a proper pothole. If we have thunder, we do it properly. If we don't have water, we do it for a month, you know. Wow, has Trump redirected his forces? That is some bang. I haven't seen the latest news on that. Alistair says you have to get the story out there. You have to tap into the circle of your contacts. Hello all, hope everyone had a good Easter, said Brenda. Oh, by the way, my box of 36, I was wrong when I said it was 32, it was 36 eggs, lasted 2.5 days. Hectic storm, says Helen. One of the biggest donors for Tom's campaign was anonymous. Yes, that was a lady who donated 80,000 Rand, and it was someone who I would call her a friend, but not a house friend. Right. Alistair Jameson was the best with helping us set up our story, but all my contacts are like me that are pensioners. So got assistance of 4,700 Rand, but now nappies now being necessary, it's a help. Yeah, that's sure. I spent a month or two at the beginning of this year looking at the adult nappy story in South Africa and how costly they are, how pricey they are, and whether there wasn't a way to get cheaper product into the country. But unfortunately with adult nappies, and I've never had to use them, thank God, but I know people who've had to, it seems that you can get really, really cheap ones and you can get really, really expensive ones, and like most products, the more you pay, the better they become. Don't get overwhelmed. Just because you can't help everyone doesn't mean you can't focus on one person. It's very, very difficult. It really, really is difficult. I do land up walking around scratching my head going, what is the bloody solution? What is, and I remember feeling this a year ago, and I still feel it. What is the solution? How do we fix this, man? Yeah. Eunice says, but Discovery has the money to fly planes out of buildings to show off. I went and looked at Discovery. So medical schemes in South Africa aren't allowed to make money. So you'll have a medical scheme, and then you'll have a company that administrates the scheme, and the company that administrates the scheme will be a PTY Limited, and is allowed to make profits. So I think the administrative company in Discovery Health posted profits of 4.5 billion last year. Those are significant profits, but even if you took all of that money and assigned it to immunotherapy, for example, it may not cover it all. And once you start talking about moving out of prescribed minimum benefits, then immunotherapy is not the only health category that falls outside of prescribed minimum benefits. It's a very, very, very tricky subject, and I think we're getting to the point as societies in the world, not even South Africa, around the world, globally, where we're all trying to find some solution to the healthcare problems we see in our countries. In South Africa, our politicians will tell us it's the NHI, but logic dictates that if you let our government run everything in health, then odds are that it will all come down. But that's subject to discussion, and we'll be discussing that in the Freedom Foundation shows with Leon Lowe. But yeah, I think that we've got to a stage in our civilization where we're able to do remarkable things in healthcare, but much of the time the remarkable stuff comes at a hell of a price. And that conundrum, that problem is a global problem, and it's a problem that requires the best brains in the world to sit down and try and work out solutions. I don't think Tom is going to come up with the solution. Big Pharma is just out for cold-blooded cash. Are your neighbors moving out, or is God moving his furniture? No, there's been a heck of a storm here. I'm about to start training with Manatech, a natural product helping cell-to-cell communication, helping the body to help itself. Very interesting, says Nikki Hart. Janine Ellen says, hi, I started my own fundraising campaign. I'm a cancer survivor. Happy to tell you my story. DM me if you'd like to chat. We'd love to help. Thanks, Janine. I'll take a look at your Facebook page. Gotta go, guys, says Una. Have a blessed evening. Tonya is on board and says, thank you, dear friends, for all the support. Yeah, just at the moment it feels like Tonya's so far away. But she's on the other end of a phone a couple of times a day, and just a great friend, just so close to me. And actually, I need to apologize to Tonya, because somebody called me for help, and then I immediately got on the phone and I went, Tonya, help! And I didn't even think that she's in the middle of organizing her mom's memorial and all of that stuff, and I was unfairly put it on Tonya's lap today, so I need to apologize to Tonya. There are churches that are truly helpful, but you need to be part of it. It's amazing how people can stand together. I know this is difficult, people who aren't that way inclined, and I respect your views. So yeah, I mean, the only way to help someone in need is when a group of people with means get together, informally or formally, and say, I can give so much, I can contribute so much. And people do have good hearts, and there are people out there who will help, but no one will help if they don't know you need help, and people aren't inclined to help unless they know what the details are, because we do have so many scams out there, and we do have so many people you know, you have a cell phone, you get a message every day trying to convince you to put in your bank account details. So people are very skeptical, people are very nervous about giving money to causes that are just scams. So I think, I don't want to use the word, I will use the word responsibility. I think it is your responsibility when you're asking for money to be as open and transparent as you can possibly be. That's the bottom line. Yeah, so my good news is my niece and nephew are visiting South Africa, and shame, I always think, you know, they're in their 20s, and I always think they've got to make a space in the diary, hey, for old Uncle Tom. I remember this when I was young. I was like, oh, do we have to go to such and such? I'm just going to hang around old people. And so I always think, shame, my poor niece and nephew, when they come out here, they've got to make a day or an evening in the diary and have a special color, like old person's night. And go and see Uncle Tom, take him out for a dinner. So I hope they don't feel that way. I wouldn't blame them if they did. But my niece and nephew are coming round, and I think they're going to take me out for some spaghetti or something. Spaghetti bolognese would be very nice. So that's my happiness this weekend has come from this visit that will happen this afternoon, this evening, when my niece and nephew come round and take their Uncle Tom, sit in the back seat of the car and go off for a dinner. That's what happens. Stick around long enough. You become the person that when you were younger, you'd go, I'd rather be drinking tequila with my friends. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it tonight, and I hope my niece and nephew will have a good time this evening and go out for a dinner. So that's my news. Recording 2 more podcasts for the Freedom Foundation tomorrow, which means we'll have 4 in the bag, which means we'll start pushing them out, and there'll be some more content on my show. And then on Thursday, I'm back in the studio, and we'll do the full catastrophe from there. And that's about it. It's been a gloomy day today. I went out this morning, and it was gloomy. And I looked out this afternoon, and it was gloomy. And now it's raining, and it's gloomy. So I hope wherever you are, your mood is not as gloomy as the weather. And I hope you're having a good afternoon and a good week, and I hope you had a good Easter weekend. So, yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say today. Mostly just how my heart bleeds when I hear of people who are in trouble, knowing that our economy and our country and our systems aren't set up to help everyone. It really does distress me. And I will continue playing whatever part I can in trying to remedy the situation. It's one of the reasons I'm working with the Freedom Foundation, because along with my work with the Freedom Foundation and my support in however I can support them, they write submissions to Parliament, and they comment on bills, and they comment on acts, and sometimes their comments and their submissions have real effect on the outcome. And so I'm getting more involved in highlighting the problems with the NHI, for example, and I'm getting more involved in looking for solutions on a national scale so that we can try and fix this healthcare system of ours in South Africa. In the meantime, we'll try and tackle the problems one by one as they come in and see what help we can get for people. Barbara says it's gloomy in Brackendowns. All this time I've been singing Barbara and Glaus. I've been wondering where you lived, and I thought it was in Australia or something. Turns out you're just down the road, the other side of Joburg. Brackendowns, eh? Okay. Yeah, I think it's a gloomy day all around Gauteng today. But let's try not let that affect our moods. Okay, so that's it for today. I'll catch up with you on Thursday. Perhaps some of these stories that I've spoken to people today about will land up on the show on Thursday, and we'll talk about them and highlight some of the problems and cases that are out there. But my big push today is to say, if you're in need of help, don't be shy, don't be afraid, don't be scared of stepping into the spotlight. Tell your story. There's no shame in needing help when you don't have enough. And sometimes you can be surviving and have a normal life, but something comes along and you need immunotherapy, and all of a sudden you don't have enough. So it can happen to all of us. Be loud and proud about the situation you find yourself in, and don't be ashamed. Put your story out there and ask the people closest to you for help, and start spreading the word, and you'll be amazed at what happens. Okay, so I hope you have a wonderful evening. These little sessions from my house will come to an end on Thursday. I've been taking advantage of being at home and not traveling, so that's why I've been doing them from home, I'll be honest. And so you haven't got all the sound effects and the bells and the whistles and the fancy lighting and the makeup, but I hope that the realness of it has shone through. And my last one is, last comment, you might think you are old, but you are young at heart, says Barbara. And I honestly, inside my heart, I still think I'm about 27. So my niece and nephew won't be going out with a 53-year-old tonight. They'll be going out with a 27-year-old in 53-year-old skin. Something like that. Have a blessed night. Have a wonderful night. Hope your Easter weekend was good. All our sympathies and thoughts and prayers are with Tonya and her family right now. And I just want to say, we'll miss you, Mrs. Curry. I found it difficult to do a big rah-rah show today because I feel sad too. And so all our thoughts, all our good wishes to you. If you have a death in your family, or you've lost someone, or you're going through a hard time, then my prayers are with you too, but most specifically with Tonya and her family today. And I just wanted to say that I will miss Mrs. Curry. I really, really will. She was one of my favorite people on the planet. And her presence will be greatly missed. Have a lovely evening. Catch you on Thursday. And we'll see if we can find some reasons to smile and laugh. Enjoy the afternoon. Enjoy the evening. And thank you once again for giving me some of your time and sitting with me twice a week. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate the sponsors of the show, the Van Kerkhoven family and the team at Suzuki Rivonia, the home of happy customers.